It is February 9th, 2016, and I am in Budapest, Hungary. The migrant flows, I mean, they don't slow down. The migrant flows into Europe, and there doesn't seem to be the political will to stop them. For January, there were 10 times as many migrants as there were last year in January. There were 70,000 migrants, 70,000 Arabs and people from non-Arab regions of the world coming into Europe through primarily through Turkey, occasionally through Libya, which is not even contiguous to Europe, curious as that may be. But in any event, we have 70,000 people in January. It is important to understand what's going on, because Macedonia has built a fence. They could, if the Greek government, the leftists, it's not even leftist. It's beyond leftist. It's almost a communist government in Greece. Doesn't want to do anything about these migrants other than pass them over, allow them free passage through Greece. Then they need to be stopped somewhere. There's already a fence in Macedonia, but that fence is not being used. They're only turning away maybe 50 to 100 migrants at the gate. What you need to do, if you are a migrant and you want to go through that gate, it's very, very, very simple. You just have to say the magic words. You have to say that you are from Syria or from Iraq, and more than not, you will just be allowed free passage. And from Macedonia, you can take a train, a direct train service, paid for courtesy of the state, all the way up the Balkans into Austria. So the end result is that Austria and Germany are now, even though they don't geographically border Turkey, it's as if they were bordering Turkey. And there's no political will to put a stop to this, even though the consequences to Europe and to people of European origin are so terrible. Angela Merkel does not want to stop the flow. Last year, 1.1 million migrants, primarily young guys, ended up in her country. And we had Paris, and then we had the Cologne sex attacks, and we have had so many individual acts of sexual violence. You know, a 10-year-old Vienna boy getting raped in the pool. That it's at this point hard to keep track of those sorts of things. But what's going on is massive ethnic replacement at a scale that has never been seen in history. And again, I mean, these migrants, courtesy of Angela Merkel, they're being, they land in some, they get to some boats provided by the smugglers, and they reach the Greek Isles. But once they reach the Greek Isles, it's room and board and transportation to the heart of Europe and to Germany, courtesy of the European Union and courtesy of Angela Merkel, who insists that these flows must continue. So, again, these migrants land in the Greek Isles. You can't have congestion in the Greek Isles, so ferries are being provided to transport thousands of people from these Greek Isles into the Greek mainland and onward into the Balkans, and from the Balkans into the rest of Europe. In the Balkans, they now enter special trains. The migrants are not allowed to get off those trains. They are not allowed to disturb the local population of the Balkans. They have to go into Germany, essentially. The only country in Europe that will accept these migrants. Because everybody else knows that these migrants are just bad news, terrible news. Now, Angela Merkel is supposedly meeting with the leader of Turkey and pleading with him to stop these migrant flows, and complaining and saying that, you know, these migrants, they're really just victims of smuggling rings, and well, you know, that's neither here nor there. These migrants are the product of failed societies across the globe. Failed societies that hold millions of people, billions of people even, and who just want to come to a tiny corner of the globe called Europe for one reason and one reason alone, because Europe is not populated by people like them, but by people who are very different. And that's just, you know, the migrants know it. I know it. You who's listening to this video know it, whether you agree with me from an aesthetic point of view or not. That's just the way the world works, you know? You don't want to end up living next to these people who are coming over, because if you have large numbers of these people, what you end up is incidents like what happened in Cologne, like what happened in Paris, multiplied many times over. Now, what will happen unless a stop is put to this is that whole cities, whole countries, whole regions of Europe are going to go Islamic. And this tiny corner of the world that belonged to the native Europeans will no longer belong to the native Europeans. And we're going to lose our cities and our countries street by street, essentially. And we're going to face the day-to-day very unpleasant interactions with Arabs and with Muslims that are part of the routine existence of a Frenchman. Even though in France the Muslims are still the minority, they're going to be catching up. They're going to take over at some point, but they're still the minority. And it's a situation that we're going to have to fight ourselves out from. Because if what has been happening in Europe is just a foretaste of things to come, then the things that are coming our way, the tsunami of misfortune that is visiting upon us, is a type of life that is something that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. I mean, you have spectacular attacks like Paris, where just random theater goers get massacred. But the sexual attacks that are happening, which in the scale that they're happening is basically unheard of, and it was basically unheard of in Europe, are going to be part of our daily existence, except that they will be intensified. And I mean, I don't know about you guys who are listening to this, but I wouldn't want my children to go into a school where they are a minority and the majority is the Arabs, the people with these dispositions, cultural or otherwise, to behave the way they have been behaving here in Europe, even though they're, at least in Central Europe, they're just recent arrivals. And we should keep in mind that our obligations to these people are non-existent. They're basically non-existent. They're not part of our culture. And Europe is not the Muslim or African improvement society. We have our own destiny, our own culture, our own way of life, and our own children and grandchildren whose best interests take precedence over the interests of the people who are coming over. So obviously, people who are coming over, they can't replicate within their own countries what we have here in Europe. And they can't do it because of, again, who they are. And that's just the way it's going to be until the end of time, apparently. Despite the protestations of certain individuals to the contrary, individuals from the left who say, well, we have to let all these people in. What about the idea of the equality of man? Well, yeah, what about the idea of the equality of man? Because if you listen to the people in the left, they start off with equality of man, but they end up with affirmative action. They end up with racial preferences, racial quotas. It's always the same story with these people in the left. Because we start off from the premise that these people who are coming over are basically the same, then we should arrive at the following conclusion. They are the same, and because they're the same, they have the majority of the globe for them to express their equality by creating societies that are essentially identical in most respects to ours. And if they cannot do it and they persist in their inability of being able to do that, then maybe we should reevaluate our assumptions, because perhaps those assumptions are incorrect. All right, take care, guys.